What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. I'm your host for today's episode, Robert Garcia, Young RG, as Coach Defense likes to call me. And in today's episode, we are continuing with the weekly trend. I'm sure you guys have seen the video that got uploaded yesterday or the teaser that got posted on X, but we are doing each team preseason previews, what to expect for the teams this coming season. We're going to do every single team, all 32 teams in the NFL, and we're going division by division each week leading up to August, I believe. So this week it is the NFC East, and continuing with the NFC East, we have the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Sorry, Alex. But yes, we are going to be going over the Eagles' entire offseason so far, what moves they made, if they were some good moves, going over their draft picks, giving an overall season grade, as well as a record prediction for what they will do this year. And of course, in the NFC East, a very tough division, we think, moving forward. The Giants were pretty god-awful last year, so we definitely don't expect them to be certainly not worse than they were last year. I definitely do think the Giants will make a solid bounce back this season. The Cowboys, of course, dealt with a lot of injuries last season, so they're usually a solid regular season contender. I can definitely see them bouncing back big time and once again being a playoff contender. And then, of course, leaving the last two teams in the division, you have the teams that were fighting for a spot to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And of course, the Eagles came away with that. So just goes to show the level of talent in this division. It is tough to be successful continuously, especially when the other teams in your division are not just pushovers. Now, for a while, Washington and New York still kind of is. We'll see. We're hoping this season not so much, but for a while there, Washington, really up until this season as well, were kind of pushovers. So I definitely think the Eagles will have a little bit of a tougher time defending the NFC crown, if you will, than they did a couple years ago. But we will see what happens either way. So, getting into it, first things first, going over the notable free agent signings of the Philadelphia Eagles. Starting off, of course, we have the edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, the 1-year, $4 million deal. You'll notice here that the Eagles didn't really sign a whole lot of free agents, and the ones they did, they were all 1-year deals. Actually, every deal here was a 1-year deal, minus the extension to Saquon, of course, and the re-signing of Zach Bond. But as I mentioned, continue going through the list. They signed a cornerback, the cornerback, Adoree Jackson, for 1 year, $1.75 million, and the former Packers running back A.J. Dillon to a 1 year, $2.75 million deal to sort of back up Saquon Barkley in that regard. Also, as I mentioned, they re-signed Zach Bond, the Pro Bowl Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champ. You can say that about all these players that got re-signed or extended. 3 years, $51 million. Saquon Barkley, of course, got his extension, 2 years, $41.2 million in new money, and Lane Johnson getting a 1-year extension as well. So the Eagles taking care of their guys. That's really what you love to see after a Super Bowl run. You typically, after a Super Bowl run, or a Super Bowl winning season, you see a lot of teams move off, don't want to pay the guys a lot of money. In this case, the Eagles are taking care of their own, and you truly do see that with Zach Bond and Saquon. Eagles did lose out on a lot of players, though, this offseason. That is bound to happen, of course, with the Super Bowl. And that is why a lot of teams get dubbed a Super Bowl hangover, just because you invested so much capital and so many resources into that season to have to try to do it all over again. Whether you win or lose is always extremely tough. But I think the Eagles have an insanely thoroughly well-built roster, insanely well-built roster. Well-built, that doesn't sound like a right word. Insanely well-built. I don't know what I'm saying. Either way, the Eagles roster is fantastic, and it continues to be proven every year. Apart from the Chiefs, which, I mean, if you're going to compare any franchise to the Chiefs, at least in recent years, looking, the last 5 years or so, every other franchise just pales in comparison to what the Chiefs have done. However, if there was any other franchise that's even somewhat close to what the Chiefs have done, it is the Philadelphia Eagles with those 2 Super Bowl appearances and, of course, the Super Bowl win against them this past season. So that's just kind of showing the level of consistency that the Eagles have had. They are not used to this. Success, at least for them recently, is nothing new. So I'm not particularly worried about any Super Bowl hangover. I do think, they're not going to have, spoiler alert, I don't think they're going to have as good of a record as they did last year, but I don't think it's also going to be that far off. And we'll get into that as we get through it some more. Taking a look now at their 2025 draft class. Obviously, their first round pick, and you'll see the actual pick number to the right of it. So round 1, pick 31, you had the linebacker out of Alabama, the stud linebacker, I might add, out of Alabama, Jihad Campbell. How he fell to the Eagles and how defensive players like this continue to fall to the Eagles, we'll never know, but it stands to reason why their defense and why their team has continued to be so damn good consistently. It's because they just nail on picks in the draft. So we'll see what Jihad Campbell can do and what Vic Fangio can do with him. Continuing on with the defensive mindset in terms of the draft, took a safety with their second round pick, Andrew Mukuba, I don't know, Mukuba out of Texas. Didn't have a third round pick. With their fourth round pick, they took another defensive player, this time an interior lineman in Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. Another defensive player in the fifth round, the CB cornerback Mac McWilliams out of Florida, Central Florida. Their second of 3 fifth-round picks, the linebacker Smael Mondon Jr. out of Georgia. The third and final fifth-round pick, the center Drew Kendall out of Boston College. And then with the 4 sixth-round picks they had, they took quarterback Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, 2 tackles and Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams out of Michigan and Texas, respectively. And their final pick in the draft, a edge rusher Antoine Powell Ryland out of Virginia Tech. So no surprise here. The Eagles just went pretty much all defense for the most part in this draft. If you take a look at the only offensive players they drafted, you had 2 tackles and a center, so 3 O-linemen, shocker, and a backup / camp body QB in Kyle McCord. So it's quite obvious what the Eagles were trying to do this season. They lost a lot of guys on defense, trying to replicate and bring some of that talent back in. I'm kind of shocked a little bit in terms of the fact that they didn't address their cornerback situation, like I thought they would. I love the Jihad Campbell pick, don't get me wrong. I just thought there were some other players, like I thought Will Johnson, who ended up going later in the second round. Not that much later. He went pretty early in the second round to the Cardinals. But I thought he would have been an absolute steal for them at the 31st pick. I know there was those injury concerns with him, but getting him with that 5th-year option, I feel like would have been the right move, because then, you find out pretty quickly if those injury concerns are real or not. And then you always have that 5th-year option. And it just was a desperate need to put somebody opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. You obviously did lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson this season and Darius Slay. So, that is... those are drastic losses in the secondary, and I just don't think they really did a good job replacing him. Now, that being said, there is Jair Alexander, who is available now. Packers just straight up released him. So that is very interesting, and we'll see if Howie continues his aggressiveness like he's used to and goes and makes a play for him. But for that, up until that point, yeah, I just think that's one of the holes that I thought they knew they needed to address going into the draft. They didn't, and now here we are post-draft, and they still have a chance to address it. It's just at this moment they have not. But taking a look at their trades and coaching changes that they made, obviously not that many big trades, although the one big one for Kenyon Green, the guard from the Texans, I believe. So they are looking at him to start almost immediately and be that Mekhi Becton replacement. And then also another quarterback they traded for was Dorian Thompson-Robinson from the Browns. He, I feel like, has a very similar mold to Jalen oh my God, Jalen Hurts. Wow. Why did I want to say Jalen Milroe? Jalen Hurts, I feel like they are very similarly built athletically. And I've always been a big believer in you want to have a backup quarterback that mimics your starting quarterback. Obviously, he is not as good as him because he clearly would not be a backup, but just somebody who imitates that style. And that way, if and when, hopefully you never have to, but if and when you do have to go to the backup quarterback, you don't have to change the playbook and the style of the offense at all for the other players. It's just kind of like a seamless switch. It's just like, hey, a little, obviously it's tough with a quarterback, a little plug and play, but I've always been kind of under that mindset of, that's the best way to go about it. So love that move for them. And then, of course, looking at their new offensive coordinator after losing Kellen Moore to the Saints this season, you have Kevin Patullo, who is or was the Eagles' passing game coordinator since 2021. And then he's also been the assistant head coach since 2023. To Sirianni. So a little bit of credentials there for him. They felt confident enough to promote him. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be a huge difference like when the Eagles lost both coordinators after that Super Bowl run the first time around against the Chiefs. I think obviously they are still keeping Fangio, and Fangio has that defense on lock. I think Kellen Moore, although he was a great coordinator, I think this offense is pretty set in terms of how it's going to run. So that was kind of like the perfect move, in my opinion, hiring somebody from within who's been with the organization for a while. Knows the playbook, knows his offense, knows the players. So that familiarity I really like for the Eagles. So I think they're going to be just fine on both sides of the ball. I don't see either side taking that steep of a decline. Maybe a couple spots back, but nothing too major to where you come away from it at the end of the season and you're like, oh my God, the Eagles severely lacked in that department or whatever it may be. But yeah, I like the move for Kevin Patullo. Obviously not a big name or anything, but just a solid move. Now, getting into their schedule for the season, obviously going to have one of the toughest schedules of the season. So of course they are going to have an insanely tough schedule. This is, I believe, the first time that a team has ever faced 11 playoff teams in their schedule from the previous season. Now, of course, the Commanders account for 2 of those games, so technically it's only 10 teams, but it's 11 games against former playoff teams, that being the Chiefs, the Rams, the Broncos, the Buccaneers, the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, the Chargers, the Commanders back to back, and the Bills. So those 10 teams. And it's an insanely tough schedule, but they are built to do it. I mean, they have one of the best defenses in the league for a reason. They still have Saquon. Jalen Hurts is still playing great football and playing great quarterback football for the Eagles and what they need from him. And just taking a look at the schedule right away, they open up the season Thursday Night Football against the Cowboys, division rival. And then you go right against the Chiefs in back-to-back weeks. And then playing the Rams in week 3, the NFC divisional rematch. You got the Buccaneers in week 4. I do think this could be a very tough game for the Eagles. For whatever reason, the Buccaneers just play the Eagles very tough for some reason, and they always kind of have a rough time against them. Go back and kind of look at the history of the Eagles and Buccaneers, and you'll see that they've kind of had their number recently. Broncos, of course, tough team. Like I said, made the playoffs. Giants are the one team you're expecting, to kind of be pushovers. But like we mentioned, I think the Giants are going to be a very solid team moving forward. Well, I take that back. I don't want to say very solid, but I do think they're going to be a much improved team. There we go. Moving forward than they were last season. And although they may still get swept again by the Eagles, I do think that the games will be a little bit closer. And the Giants will give the Eagles some kind of run for their money. And then you got the Vikings again, Giants. Then you got your bye week, Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Bears, and the Chargers. And then finishing off the season against the Raiders, Commanders, Bills, and then the Commanders once again. Kind of a weird schedule in terms of their divisional games. So they play the Commanders twice in 3 weeks at the end of the season. They play the Giants twice in 3 weeks in the middle of the season, and the Cowboys games are split up week 1 and week 12. So definitely kind of a weird setup for them. Also, a weird setup for the Eagles schedule this year. They do not have any back-to-back home games. I thought that was actually incredibly alarming. I know back-to-back home games isn't necessarily like a huge deal, but just that constant traveling. I mean, you never get to stay home for more than 1 week at a time can definitely be, a little bit. I don't want to say, upsetting, but it could start to take its toll a little bit on a team. And I think that's just definitely a weird aspect. I guess you could count their bye week and the home game against the Giants, week 8, as back-to-back home weeks that they'll back-to-back weeks that they'll be at home. Excuse me. But yeah, I thought that was just a very interesting tidbit about their schedule. So yeah, I think their schedule, kind of looking at it in a whole now, looking at the whole offseason grade and predictions for them, getting right into it. I gave their offseason grade a B, just a solid B, and I think they finished with a 12-5 record this season. I gave their offseason grade of a B instead of an A because I do still think the hole at cornerback is a massive, I don't want to say massive problem, but it is a concern that they definitely need to address. And there is somebody out there to address it, which is kind of why I was even questioning kind of going a little bit lower, just because I thought for sure, Howie would almost swoop at the idea of picking up Jair Alexander the minute the Packers released him. But alas, he's still out there. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. And I gave him a 12-5 record. I believe they finished 13-4 this past year. Very easily could have finished 14-3, but they sat their starters in the week 18 game. So, I do think they take a slight step back this season, just with that insanely tough division and tough schedule, and the lack of back-to-back home games, things like that, just a whole mix of it. I do still think that the Eagles will have a great season. I just think it'll be a slight step back from what they accomplished last year. And obviously you're chasing perfection, because anything other than a Super Bowl win will be disappointment coming off of a Super Bowl win. So, take that for how you will. But the Eagles continue to be one of the more dominant teams in the NFL, and especially in the NFC. So yeah, I definitely look to see them to continue that. But with that all being said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take a look here at the gang, the Hit Squad, and their socials. We're on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. And then, of course, be sure to check out the Lockdown Defense Sports Network on all social media platforms. X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and our Gmail. Send us some emails, man. Yeah, if you want to see some video ideas, if you want to just talk ball, hell, we are always open to talk ball. We love talking football. We love this league, and we are obviously all very excited for the upcoming season and for all of our teams. Football isn't back yet, but mini camps and OTAs have kind of started. So we are very excited. We got holdouts. It's going to be a lot of fun. So be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss all of our amazing content that we will be putting out this entire summer leading up to the start of the season. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.